Hello and welcome to the Internal Comms podcast with me, Katie Macaulay. I'm on a mission to improve the way we communicate at work. Every fortnight, I ask a leading voice in our field to sit in my podcast hot seat. This might be an internal comms practitioner, author, academic or consultant. This week, we have James O'Connor, Internal Communications Manager at Ryanair. Now, many of you will know about this European airline, but just in case you don't, Ryanair is now the world's largest low-fare airline by passenger numbers, recently overtaking its great mentor, Southwest Airlines. In its last financial year, Ryanair carried around 200 million passengers across 2,600 routes. But what is the comms and culture really like inside this organisation? So, to find out, let's meet James O'Connor. So, James, welcome to the Internal Comms podcast. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm guessing that I'll have said a few things about Ryanair before we get going in the introduction, but I'm guessing many listeners won't fully appreciate the size and the scale and the scope of the organisation. Can you give us a sense of the business?
Absolutely. I think that there's probably very few people across Europe who don't know of Ryanair, at least. I think that there's perception that I've come across when I first joined the company in Ireland. Our biggest competitor in Ireland would be Aer Lingus, and people think that we're neck and neck, but we are a Europe-wide airline, Europe, North Africa and the Middle East, and they are a national carrier, and to compare the two is to diminish the scale of Ryanair. And when I came into the company, it just blew my mind how big it is. We're about 27,000 people at the moment. That fluctuates between winter and summer across 37 countries. Again, that fluctuates from time to time, but 37 countries. We have, and to give myself a bit of leeway, I'll say between 95 and 100 bases. And bases are airports that we operate out of. That's where aircraft stay, where our staff are based, where our people are based. And they are kind of satellite offices to a certain extent.
Yes.
As well as that, we have offices. Our headquarters is in Dublin. We have offices in Madrid, in Poland, in Portugal, in Stansted, all around the place. So it is quite a diverse, a physically diverse business as well as operationally diverse. We have people working in everything from IT to operations to pilots, cabin crew, engineers, ground crew, a bit of everything. And that again is based across 37 countries. I think we have 70 nationalities at last count.
Wow.
I was going to call out the number of aircraft we have, but it changes so quickly that I don't want to pin myself down to a number. It's above 600 now at this stage anyway, in our fleet, and constantly growing. And the great thing about the company is that we constantly have our eyes on growth and what's next and where are we going next. And we have huge growth plans for the next few years.
How exciting. That leads me neatly into talking about your audience.
Mm-hmm.
There's an awful lot of diversity and complexity in what you've just said. Do you have in your mind, do you carry around a kind of mental model about your audience, about how you think about segmentation? Is there a way that you think about that complexity and break it down in your own mind?
There is, of course, and I do have kind of that structure in my mind of how it's laid out. But I have to change that every time a new comms challenge arises.
Right.
And look at what section of our people do we want to communicate to.
Right.
It might not necessarily be all cabin crew. It might not necessarily be all of our people in Spain. It could be a mix and match of this and that. And it's about kind of retargeting every time and refocusing on who the section of people that we're trying to speak to are.
Right.
So try not to be too rigid in that.
Yes.
And then again, even in groups that you think are similar, are our pilots. We have 8,000 pilots. There's such diversity within that group alone. So it really varies from communication to communication.
I find that fascinating Because I thought you were going to say something very obvious, like there's people sat behind screens in central functions that I can reach very easily with an email. Then there's people out and about all the time on their feet or flying the planes or whatever. But what you're suggesting is that ideally what you do is a much more nuanced kind of slicing of the audience and not just putting people in categories, a one-size-fits-all pilot, for example.
Absolutely. And I think that comes down to the diversity of work done. Even when you say behind a desk, I'm thinking of our HQ itself.
Yeah.
And our operations control center, which manages a lot of the schedule, a lot of the operation itself, sit very close to our labs function, who are developing apps and developing online features. They are quite diverse groups in and of themselves, you know. So, and even in work schedule, in the way that each team works, it's very different and very unique. That I try not to tar everyone with the same brush, and I try to look at it in, I suppose, nuance is a good way of putting it, and break it down as much as I can in my own mind.
Have you gone as far as having audience personas?
We have, to a certain extent, in kind of a non-formalized way.
Yeah.
Formalizing it is actually something that we're working on at the moment.
Excellent.
And my team are probably working on it as we speak. But again, I would be afraid of pigeonholing that way. And I know that we do have to focus to an extent on groups. We can't send 30,000 individual messages to 30,000 individual people. But I suppose it's about what we're communicating and what breakdown that communication warrants, I suppose, is how we always tackle it.
Yes. And I suppose in the back of your mind, when you're thinking about this, I'm guessing what's in the back of your mind is we must be hugely respectful of people's time, especially if they're doing these frontline jobs. That's why you're slicing and dicing so carefully.
Absolutely. I mean, it's Ryanair has always been described as an exercise in efficiency. Everything that we do is efficient. From turning around aircraft quickly to developing apps to putting together comms work. Everything has to be efficient. Because of that, there's very little wasted time. Right. So we have to earn the time that people spend on us. None of that time can be frivolous. None of that time can be taken away from something that could be making their job more efficient. So we have to make sure that their time spent interacting with our work is time well spent.
I love that thought of earning the time. Oh, that's really, really smart. Many people will probably know Ryanair for its external sort of comms. It's got this very sort of bold, unfiltered, slightly sort of comical fun side to its personality. What's the culture really like inside? Is it mirrored inside?
Yeah, it's very like that.
Right.
It's very like that. I mean, it's I think that when a lot of people think about Ryanair's culture, the first thing that comes into their mind is in the early 2000s, Michael O'Leary.
Yes.
His PR work, coming out and talking in public and kind of building that persona off his own back. And that has filtered into the way the company is run. Right. I mean, he himself is around the office all the time.
Right.
He works with people. He's not far from anyone. He stands in the queue behind you for coffee. So someone that had such a hand in building what Ryanair is now, still being around, still being such I wanted to say figure, but that kind of gives it too much gravitas because we are a very flat structure as well.
Right, okay.
So, but that does filter through to all that we do. We're no nonsense. We get stuff done. If you make a mistake, you'll be told you've made a mistake. You'll be let know in no uncertain terms, but then you'll move on. We won't linger on that. We'll move on to get things right the next time, to make things better. Make a mistake, learn from it, do better next time. We don't overly do post-mortems on things and linger on mistakes.
Right.
We're very straightforward talking. We don't lean into too many Americanisms, for want of a better term, or too many cliches.
Yeah.
And like I say, the flat structure that we have is not only in kind of a reporting structure, but in an interactive way. if somebody 5 levels above me has something to say, they'll come to my desk and they'll say it to me very clearly and concisely. Sometimes maybe overly clearly. But no, it's great to have that, and that helps us a lot with what I focus on and what we work towards is turning things around very quickly.
Yes.
And that means that things don't have to go through 10 rounds of approvals, and they don't have to sit with a panel of people before they can get signed off. It goes straight to somebody. They watch it there and then. They give their feedback there and then. We implement that feedback straight away, and we can keep things moving.
Just one supplementary question on that. So I've noticed over the years, those organisations that have very strong cultures, the Legos, the IKEAs of this world, there's often a playbook or a Bible or something somebody wrote when they founded the company that acts as that kind of guiding light. Is there anything like that in Ryanair? Kind of your values or a playbook or the induction that you do? Is there something special that sets the tone very early on?
I think it's not just one thing, it's everything.
Right. Okay.
Like, I really do think that it's baked into the fabric of who we are and of how we work. I was going to say I don't think that there's anything carved in over the door, but then I was reminded that when you walk into our reception, there's a 10-meter high vinyl on the wall of the Joker from Batman with the words "Welcome to the Madhouse" written on it.
No.
So maybe that's a nice welcome.
Is there really?
Yeah.
I love that so much.
And yeah, that probably sets the tone for people coming in. I mean, it's part of the background to me at this stage, but it probably is confronting to some people when they walk in. But like I say, it's in everything. It's in the first interactions you have with people. It's in all of our inductions. I hope it's in all of our comms, because that's what I aspire to have. So I wouldn't say it's any one thing. There's no slogan. There's no one line ethos or anything like that. It's a lived experience, and it's everything there. Yeah.
Just with Michael O'Leary, though, obviously, when somebody embodies the organisation, that's a great thing. You've got someone to point to and have on stage. But equally, I guess you want to make sure that everything's not just embodied in one person, and they're not used for every single initiative and change programme. So I'm guessing there's also quite a bit of work done to spread that leadership load and have those role models across the business. So it's not just all baked in one person.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is. It's like I say, one of our things that we work on a lot, and I work a lot with the recruitment teams, is our internal mobility and our internal progression, and it's a big thing for us. And one of the things that leads to and that lends to is people learning from day one the culture, and bringing that up with them. Yes. Like, we have a lot of people at our C-suite level who would have started off as graduates.
Wow.
We have a lot of people very high up who have been there 20, 25 years.
Really?
That leads to them absorbing that culture, helping to build that culture over. If you're talking about that kind of timescale, they've helped to build that as well.
Nice.
And bringing that into then the positions of management and the positions of leadership, and then distilling that and cultivating and then disseminating it out to the rest of our people.
Fantastic. This episode of the Internal Comms podcast is brought to you by AB, the world's longest established internal communications agency. Since 1964, AB has been trusted by many of the world's most complex, most high-profile organisations with their employee communication. From robust, comprehensive audits to creative campaigns, we deliver bespoke solutions and measurable results. To see case studies of our work and to discuss your next internal comms challenge, email us at hello@abcom.co.uk. AB, crafting award-winning internal communication for more than 60 years. Let's talk a little bit about you. You didn't come to internal comms through a traditional route. Can you tell us how you found your way into internal comms?
Yeah. Would you like the long version or the short version?
Let's go for the long version. We've got time.
Well, I came out of school and was, I don't want to say aimless. That's probably putting myself down a little bit too much. I knew that I wanted to, what I thought at that stage was work in film. Didn't know how to get there.
Right.
I studied a degree in multimedia, which kind of gave me a little bit of everything, a little bit of a feel for everything. And then I went working in films for a good few years at that stage. I spent a small stint as an Irish teacher in secondary school.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which was a diversion from the path, but I found myself back in film then. Ended up working in marketing videos, in promotional work. I directed a feature film at one stage. It was a bit of everything, and anything I get my hands on. All I wanted to do was work in film. And then COVID came along, and that all shut down very quickly.
Of course.
And as I think a lot of people were during COVID, I was a little bit aimless. I was looking for what was next. And next thing, I was presented on LinkedIn with this position of video and content lead in Ryanair. I thought that was interesting. It wasn't something that I had thought about before. And I was uncertain about going into a corporate job because I never saw myself as a corporate person. And I went into the interview process and the whole process saying, well, I'm just going to be myself in this. And if they want me, they want me. If they don't, that's not down to me. It's down to what they want.
Yeah.
They turned out they wanted me. Whether they regretted that decision later or not is up to them to say. But I spent about 2.5 years in the marketing team. I was the video content lead, worked very closely with the social media team while they were doing great things down there. They really knocked it out of the park in terms of what they did on TikTok, what they did on Twitter, what they did on Instagram. I met my now wife there.
Oh, wow.
She was leading the social media team, and I was leading the video team, and we worked a lot on projects. And the rest is history in terms of that.
Yes.
And then at a certain stage, a role, again, and this is tying in kind of to the wider Ryanair journey with internal comms, I suppose. Coming out of COVID, the question was asked, how do we communicate with our people in a post-COVID world? Which I think a lot of companies ask themselves. And at that stage, we had an in-house built system that we call Fleet Tweet. Right. That was an internal message board.
Yes.
And that was used to communicate with our frontline people, so our cabin crew and our pilots mostly. It was, looking back now, at the time it was great. Looking back now, it's basic compared to what we could do now. And coming out of COVID, we just wanted a little bit more. So before I joined the team, they went off and they did the discovery, and they looked at all the platforms that were out there and what kind of tools we could be using, and came across WorkVivo.
Yes.
And straight away clicked. Went into negotiations about it and took it on board. And I heard, I can't remember who it was it Bupa speaking before about their fast onboarding process, which was 3 months. Yes. I think ours was probably half that.
Really?
Yeah. And it's I've heard, I'm glad I wasn't on board at that stage. But I've heard a few horror stories from the WorkVivo side about how quickly the implementation was done. But like I say, we don't waste time. We got things done. And sorry, to go back to where I was, I went off on a tangent there. At that stage, they looked at the internal comms function, and at that stage, it was 3 executives, but there was nobody in kind of a strategic management position there.
Right.
So they decided to bring on board a manager. And I had worked with the internal comms guys a lot in different video projects, different work that we would have done in the past. And my now director, Mark, would have been hiring for the new position. So I approached him. I said, what do you think? Let's chat about this. We had a few chats, went through an interview process, met our chief people officer, Daryl, talked about what I would do with it. But again, like my initial interview process, I went into it with the mindset that I'm going to go into this as me, saying what I think is the best for this. And whether that's not what they want to do, whether that's what they want to do or not, that's down to them. But we agreed quite quickly that we would take kind of what we had been doing in marketing and take that tone of voice, take that attitude and bring it internal. And obviously because I'm a filmmaker by trade, my strategy was very video focused.
Yes.
And they loved that idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a match made in heaven. That was 2 years ago now.
Yes.
And we've done some amazing things since then, and it's been a really great experience. I'm still learning all the time. I think that a lot of the people who you have sitting in this chair have been working in internal comms for a long time, and probably coming at it from a more structured point of view than me. I always try and come to it from a little bit of an unorthodox point of view, and bringing that experience that I have, whether it's in working in social media, in marketing, in filmmaking, bringing that all in and coming at it from a different point of view, I suppose I'd say.
Couple of things on that. One is, I think, so smart that you went into those interviews as yourself. I think sometimes people forget that you are interviewing the organisation as much as they are interviewing you. By being yourself, you get that chance to see, am I going to fit here? Is this organisation right for me? Not just am I right for them? So I think that's super, super smart. Are there some basic lessons that you learn through your years in film, or just ways of working or ways of thinking that come into your mind constantly in the world of internal comms that feel very relevant?
100%. And it's funny the parallels that I've seen looking back in hindsight. I went into film wanting to tell stories and wanting to explore human experience.
Right.
And as soon as that came out of my mouth, I heard how pretentious it sounded. but it's what I'm going to go with. But it was always about people for me, and it was always about telling stories, and that's what I hold on to now. The best thing about my job is that I get to work with so many people from so many diverse backgrounds, and to be able to tell stories, to be able to communicate in different ways. Obviously, there are more kind of functional things that I bring, some of the skills that I developed. But I really think that the most valuable thing was both being able to interact with people on that level and being able to convey their stories and their...
Really nice. Yeah. Any misconceptions you had about internal comms, or anything that when you got in it, you thought, I didn't expect that? I'm just wondering whether... your expectations were met or not.
I had huge misconceptions.
Did you?
I thought that it was going to be boring. And that's I think why I was so resolute in going in as myself into the interview process, because in hindsight now, nobody ever would have expected me to, but I wanted to make it clear that nobody could expect me to be drafting memos every day and just doing newsletters, and I wanted to do something fun and think outside the box and be a bit wacky with things. And I probably went in overly defensively, because in hindsight now, that's what everyone else that I'm working with now wanted to do as well.
Fantastic.
So yeah,
Love
I was lucky in that. Yeah,
love that so much. You talked about the importance of speed. And I think when we prepped for this show, you talked about the importance of 25 minutes. Can you share with us why 25 minutes is such a crucial period of time for Ryanair?
So 25 minutes is the target time for turning around an aircraft. So
amazing.
That's the backbone of our business, is aircraft being in the sky. We don't want them on the ground for too long, so we turn them around as quickly as possible, and that it takes a lot of people to do.
Right.
From operational staff to ground crew to cabin crew to pilots, everyone needs to work together and everyone needs to be on the same page. Like I say, that's the backbone of what we do, and that then filters into everything we do.
Yes.
So there's no time wasted, as I say, in that or in anything else. When we decide to do something, we go and we do it. Yeah. There's no planning by committee for weeks and weeks. There's a decision made by people who know how to make the decisions, let's say, to turn things around. And I think I mentioned earlier as well that there's no huge shame in getting things wrong. Obviously, we do our best in everything to get everything right. But if something doesn't go to plan, we pick ourselves up, we brush ourselves off, and we move on to the next thing very quickly.
Mm.
Learning from that experience, learning from what might not have gone right in that. And yeah, that's in everything we do. Like I that was definitely in our marketing approach, in our comms approach. I've definitely tried to bring that in so many of our teams. That's kind of what we do. We move quickly, and we turn things around quickly. And because of that wastage, not only in time but in everything, it means that you get a lot of ownership over things.
Yes.
So my team, I give ownership over projects too, and that is
Nice.
theirs, and they have that. And I think that one thing that I've talked to a lot of people in the comms world about, is that I think as comms managers or whatever role you have in the comms world, you always say, "Oh, I just want that buy-in, and I want people to trust me in that, and to just allow me to kind of spread my wings and go with this idea and trust me." And I think if we're asking for that from above, it's important to give that to our teams as well. So I always try and do that and allow my team to try new ideas. And like I say, if they don't go to plan, if they don't go right, they learn for next time, and next time is better.
Yeah.
You know?
That speed only works with that kind of accountability, doesn't it? And that, I love that so much. The problem we have is that lots of people might be listening to this and thinking, I'd love to work at that speed, but I've got all these approval processes. And not only that, but my leaders want perfection. They want every I dotted, every T crossed. They want it to look a certain way and to be highly polished. How do you get leaders comfortable? I mean, it sounds like they already are because of your culture, but do you sometimes have to kind of work against leaders who just want it polished?
I have, but I would say more rarely than most companies. We don't have that approach. There are certain things that we do get perfect. Our operating procedures are perfect. Our safety is flawless. Things like that are perfect, and there's a lot of work put into making them perfect. But I suppose it's about looking at perfect and looking what perfect is for each project. For me, we are, in the way that we do our comms, we're not competing with your Teams and your Outlook. We are competing with Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and those things are so quick turnaround. They are so immediate, and if you don't jump on something as soon as it happens, you miss it. So for me, the perfection is in the timing. The perfection isn't necessarily in the perfect lighting and the perfect edit, and then as well as timing, it's about message. And I think that sometimes when we talk about the perfection in the message, we can look at the perfect wording. And is that word quite what I mean, or do I mean that word either? But I think that more so than that, when we're dealing with people, it's about tone. It's about getting that human side out. It's about figuring that out. And yet wording is part of that, but it's also about people stepping outside their ego and being themselves.
Right.
You know, whether that's all the way up CEO down to whoever it is, just being themselves and saying, look, we're trying to do this together, lads. We're all on the same side. Okay, this might have happened. That's not ideal, but we're working together to try and make it better for everyone.
Yeah.
And speaking on a human level rather than over corporatizing it.
Yeah.
I suppose I'd say. That might not be a word, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, no, it does. It makes perfect sense. And you're so absolutely right. The timing, that's where the perfection comes in, because you can have this polished, perfect, on point message, piece of content that it's just too late. Everyone knows about it. It's no longer relevant. What's the point of that polished piece of content? So I love that so much. And also, do you find that potentially when leaders are being themselves, they can get away with the odd stumble or
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll say that again, or we could say it like this or we could say it like that. Yep. It's allowable because they're being themselves. Overly scripted and they start to get all very formal and stiff, and it doesn't work so much. Yeah,
100%. And what we found is that, and this is probably experience that I bring in from prior work, but nowadays the media landscape has gone towards the authentic. And overly polished can dissuade people from thinking that things are authentic, even if they are. I think that a few of the rough edges allow you to forgive that a little bit and allow you to see behind the curtain a little bit.
Yes.
And even a lot of our like Daryl, our CPO, we used to do a lot of pieces of camera, and okay, they weren't Hollywood standard, but they were a little bit more polished. But we found that what people were taking away from that was the message, was the humanity in it. So if he has a message, so often he'll just pick up his phone, speak into a selfie camera, and send it out.
Yeah.
And that's as authentic as you can get.
Absolutely.
And people really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they can see he's not hiding behind anything.
Yeah.
He's not overly editing or redacting anything he says. He's being real. He's saying what he thinks, and it goes out.
It's funny because you're making me think, over the years, we've always had this debate about, is the internal audience just an extension of the external one? Does it have any special characteristics or nuances? Can't you just lump everyone together these days and just call it communications? Do you have to have internal, external even? And I've always said, well, I think the internal audience is discreet and special because unlike every other audience, whether it's your customers, whether it's your investors, whatever they are, your people are seeing under the hood. They're seeing under the rug. They know what it's really like. And you can't beguile or fool them like you might, not that you should, but that you might get away with a little bit marketing your organisation. You can't market your organisation to your people. So what you're saying makes perfect sense because this is the reality of what people are experiencing with their leaders every day anyway. So why not show them that?
Yeah.
Just makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. And I think that actually, it reminds me of another point I was going to make later, is that we've tried to do that in the other way as well.
Right.
In our people listening stuff and in our feedback. I mean, we try and have, our platform is as two-way as we can make it at the moment, and constantly trying to find more ways of making it two-way. And that means that you open yourself up to negativity. And some people have said, but what if someone comes on and says something negative? And we say, well, wouldn't you like to hear the negative thing they have to say? You know, why do you only want to hear the cheerleading stuff? We don't want cheerleading. We want people to tell us how it really is. There's an issue down here. This, and this are wrong. We go, okay, now we can fix it. You know, and now we can work with you to make things better for you, rather than only hearing the great things and hiding from the negativity.
Yeah. In terms of that working at pace, working at speed, I'm guessing, I can imagine you're kind of juggling lots of different pieces of content and campaigns all the time. What does your sort of planning process look like? Is there any specific way that you sort of weigh up competing priorities? I've literally just got off a call with a client. So at the moment, they're almost become a victim of their own success because now everyone's seen what great work they do. There's every stakeholder in the world that says, my thing's the next thing and it has to go to everyone. How do you deal with that?
That's a really good question. No, that's definitely an experience that I've had in the past, and I think that when we first kind of changed the strategy, when I first came on board and we started focusing a lot more on video work and started getting a lot more content out there, exactly that happened. Every stakeholder in the business goes, oh yeah, now my one, and now my one, and now my one, and to everyone, what they want to say is the most important thing to say.
Yes.
And it is very difficult at times to take a step back and to look at, for our people, what is the most important. And it's a balancing act, and it's on a case by case basis.
Right.
But I think that we have so much buy-in at this stage from a lot of senior people, that they know themselves what their strategy department is, and we've worked with them to develop kind of strategies about what is and isn't important to say, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
But it's still a struggle. It's still a balance. It's still a bit of a juggle. Like I've heard you say before that if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have priorities. Which is such a great line. It's so true. And because like our platform has, it's broken down into different sectors, but it has on average about 1,000 posts a week.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and figuring out how to make the important messages cut through and not to have everything drowned out, or not to have anything drowned out, rather, and have the important things rise to the surface, is something that we're constantly doing, constantly trying to improve. But it's it is that balance between having an active platform and having a platform that is useful for people. And that's what it needs to be. Like I say, we want to earn the people's time who are looking at this. So making sure that they are presented with the most important, the most pertinent things straight off the bat. And sometimes that is about being ruthless and saying, I know you think it's important, but it's not. Which is just a difficult conversation to have at times. And then that comes into not only in posting on the platform, but workloads as well. It's balancing that and trying to figure out how to not have people overwhelmed by constant requests. And sometimes you can become so overwhelmed by requests that you're just getting through stuff and you don't have that time to take a step back and go,
yes, that's true.
What am I prioritizing here? It's about making sure that you prepare for those moments knowing that they will come, and and making as many putting as many processes in place as you can so that you can fall back on those when you become overwhelmed. And say, well, this is what we do. You know?
Just diving into the whole sort of mobile workforce and then the app WorkVivo. There are, as you say, so many platforms and solutions out there. We're awash with them. Technology in our space has really grown up finally. I know you weren't involved necessarily in that very early stage of picking the right solution and embedding it, but knowing what you know now about that platform, if you were advising another IC person about launching something like WorkVivo, any particular advice you'd give around launching it or functionality or explaining the business case for it?
Integration with the rest of the company is obviously so important. And what we did is take a lot of our data structures from other places.
Right.
Where our data was broken down in other ways, we brought those in, and the data is broken down in the same way on our platform. I think if I had that opportunity again, I would again take that step back and say, well, how do we want this broken down? You know, what's most useful for our platform, not only for messaging it out, but for getting our analytics back, for getting that feedback back. How do we want to dissect our community? Would be one that I would say. But like another thing that I would say is that the platform is only a tool and a hosting place. It's about what you do with it, you know? Like WorkVivo was so great, it's so malleable, and they will work with us on improvements or new implementations. But the main thing is the comms that we put out. Make sure that they're suitable for what we want them to do, that they're directed at the right people, that they're suitable to those people, and that they are not what we want to say, but said in a way that they want to hear, so that they do absorb it, they do hear it. If we come out with a message that's too blunt and just falls on deaf ears, there's no point in doing it, you know?
I was looking at the back end of WorkVivo literally this morning, the advanced analytics, and it blew my mind about what the graphs and the charts and the stats. I'm just curious, how often do you look at those metrics, and would you have any advice around the one or two things to pay attention to? Because there's a wealth of data now, isn't there?
Yeah. So I look at them far too often for my own
good.
Do
you?
Yeah, I do. I was recently on my honeymoon and my wife had to tell me to stop looking at them. But,
that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, and I agreed with her at that point. I think that there is so much there, and it's, again, I'm reticent to say an answer from my point of view because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. I think that I don't think that WorkVivo developed that back end with the thinking that everyone would use every piece of it. I think it's about picking and choosing. Our activation rates were very important to us at the start, and then we got to a level where they became less important. Our platform was so active that we could kind of chip away at that rather than being on top of it all the time. Again, we had to look at a certain point, our platform became so busy with content that we had to look at quality over quantity. And even though that for a long time, number of posts was so important to us, and weekly we'd look at that as a metric of success, that kind of went lower on our list of priorities because it was about, but the stuff that is going out, how good is it? How much is it cutting through? How much effect is it having on our people? So it changes all the time. and as well in an industry like ours that is seasonal,
Yes.
and that is affected by events across Europe,
very much so.
that can affect the operation so much, and then the operation can obviously affect our stats so much. So it's about, I think that I have been victim in the past to letting myself get too deep into the numbers and to relying on, well, this week is bigger than last week, so that's good. I think that I've learned that there's more to it than that, and there's more going on than a line in a bar chart going up. It's and that's a lot more difficult. It's a lot easier when you can say one is bigger than zero. I think that I've had to have the discussion so often with people in the business that this week's number is smaller than last week's number, but that's not a bad thing. And explaining that that's not a bad thing when you're presenting the numbers is difficult, but it's not always a bad thing.
No.
It's not always a bad thing. If you have 10 great pieces of content rather than 20 mediocre pieces of content, that's a win,
Yes. From everything you're saying, I totally agree. It's about quality over quantity. It has to be at the end of the day, especially as you say, in a world where we're all very busy. You're competing with TikTok and goodness knows what. Plus, you've got people busy on the ground doing the work. One of the observations that I've got from what you've said is that it sounds like a lot of content is being created by the audience, not by the central team.
Absolutely.
Did that just happen organically, or did you have to work hard to actually get people on the platform creating those posts?
A bit of both. A bit of
Right,
both.
okay.
A bit of both, and that's down to the kind of breakdown of our people. Like I say, every audience is different. It's our cabin crew loved it. Our cabin crew came onto the platform and straight away started sharing everything.
Right.
They loved being on the platform. They loved seeing what their colleagues were doing, and just took to it. Now our in-flight team have done absolutely fantastic work as well, and they work very diligently at that, and giving people feedback on their content and going in and interacting and making sure that it is a busy, energetic place. And some of it is our office-based staff are less active and are more consumery, I suppose I'd say. Like they will read our news articles, they will watch our videos, but are less inclined to react or to comment or to post themselves. Now that is changing all the time. I think that as we develop our strategy and spread our strategy out more and more, more departments are seeing that. Not more departments, because that's reductive, but everyone is starting to see that this can be a tool that is useful for them. They don't have to post because the company want them to post. They can post because this helps their job.
Nice. Yes.
So it is. We are getting through that.
Yeah. And the more that people see it, as you say, then it grows organically. People see the value.
Absolutely.
They're doing that over there. We could do the same. That could help us in our big change program or something we need to communicate and publicise to the world. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Presumably you had to convince people to download this to personal devices.
Yeah.
Was that a barrier?
I wouldn't say a barrier. There was a bit of convincing, I would say, at some point.
Right, okay.
And that was at the offset. But we've built it in entirely to our onboarding processes in every department at the moment.
Yeah.
A lot of our functions are on there. So one of the big ones would be our staff travel benefits. To get into them, you go through WorkVivo.
Perfect.
So that's driven a lot of traffic. But what that means as well is that we know that people are going on there to book flights. So we have to make sure that the first piece of content that they're presented with distracts them from that and makes them stay on the platform, whether it's for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever it is, and makes them inclined to click back in. But yeah, like I say, it's so integrated into our culture, our way of working, our onboarding at this stage that that's becoming less and less of an issue all the time.
I mean, it's probably an unfair question, but I'm going to ask you in a way. Do you think that will become a completely redundant question as newer generations enter the workforce? That the question about, would you mind downloading this app on your personal device? Do you think it?
I don't know. That's a difficult one.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's not always the people you think who have pushback on downloading it.
Okay. That's interesting.
Sometimes it is. We get some like I've gotten some feedback at some stage being like, oh, I'm in my 50s, I'm not downloading an app. And like, come on, at this stage, this stage.
Yeah.
But then also we get people who you wouldn't expect kind of say, well, I don't want that on my phone. This is my personal phone.
Yeah.
I say, yeah, but and kind of elaborating on what it is and the fact that it's not necessarily just a work tool, that this is where you get your updates, this is where you hear this is good for you as much as it's good for us,
Yes. And this is what gives you a voice, because I think that's so important from what you've said. And does that mean you're tracking, and just going quickly back to analytics, you're tracking sentiment there as well? Because presumably within comments and things, it's tracking that kind of sentiment. Yeah.
And there is a new AI sentiment analytics tool that I haven't fully dug into yet. But a lot of the sentiment stuff that we get is I suppose I'd say hard to hide from. You know what I mean? It's there in front of you. It's we see it because
true.
we have it so open. Like one of the big initiatives we started about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago at this stage, was a space that we call the Idea Zone. So
nice.
it's a digital suggestion space that anyone from the company can go on and post an idea about. And we've gotten all sorts of everything. What's been great about that is that people who are working on the front line all the time see things that from an office you can't see, and you might know it on an academic level, but you don't experience it. You don't hear the same PA 4 times a day. You don't interact with passengers constantly.
Yes.
So to get that feedback and to bridge that gap between the front line and the office space is just invaluable. And like I say, it's about not hiding from some of that negativity. So even when we look at sentiment, something could be pegged as a negative thing. But if it's highlighting to us an issue that we can improve on, that's a positive,
Yeah, that's so smart to look at it that way.
Yeah.
A, because then you can fix it ideally or address it. B, because wouldn't you rather have that on an internal platform than it going externally?
Absolutely.
You work in a unionised industry, presumably. So that's really important. That is such a smart way of looking at negative feedback. Absolutely love that so much. In terms of content, you've explained that it's raw, it's unfiltered, it's authentic, you're working at pace. How much of it would you divide it as kind of pure sort of culture building, sort of fun community stuff that kind of reflects the culture and the values versus the hard business stuff? Or actually, do you not make that distinction at all? Because some of those hard business priorities, this is the target, this is how well we're doing, is done in that kind of raw, unfiltered, fun way.
Absolutely. And it's I think that we draw that distinction a lot less than a lot of people. And even when we are doing important business updates, we did one recently with our CEO and our COO, and it was operational. It was about the summer period and about how things are going, and it was big stuff. But you can say that in a human way as well. Like we've tried to get away from that being scripted. We didn't script it almost.
Really?
We had bullet points. But But we wanted to make sure the messages were coming out in a relatable, real way. We didn't want to hide from anything. We said, look, this isn't going well. That's okay. We're improving on it. We're doing that. We try and bring that into every piece of comms that we do. Now, there are things as well that, and especially at the start of our journey in this, there were things that were purely culture building.
Right.
And that were fun and frivolous and silly to a point. They were at times harder to get over the line to convince people that, no, these do have value and they do have a place on this platform. Not only with people signing off content, that was fine to a certain extent, but to an audience to say, I know it's a work platform, but this is, just give it a go. You know what I mean? It's a bit of fun, and that's okay. It's okay to have fun and work. You know?
It's allowed.
But so it's a bit of both, I suppose. Yeah.
You talked about being comfortable with failure. It hasn't worked. That's okay. We'll learn and move on. We won't do long post-mortems and try to sort of place blame. We'll just sort of move on. Have you experimented with something you thought was going to fly? I'm using that deliberately, that analogy, and that hasn't, and you've thought, oh my goodness me, I got that wrong? Or alternatively, have you looked at the stats and thought, I never thought that was going to do as well as it did, but it has? Any ones you want to share with us?
The things that have gone well that I didn't expect to, it's wild stuff, and it is so often the unpolished stuff, the stuff that is just fun and a bit wacky, and people appreciate seeing behind that curtain. And when you say one that didn't go well, that I thought would go well, one very specific time comes to mind. For anyone who's just listening to this as audio, they probably won't know that I'm a mustache enthusiast. But so one year I decided that the best campaign, and it seems like a no-brainer, the best thing that we would do is Movember.
Yeah, of course.
So I tried to wrangle a few people in to do Movember, get people on board, put a lot of work into it. 1st of November came around and I shaved off my mustache, and that was a moment for me. And it all came to nothing.
Oh, no.
It fell on deaf ears, and it just didn't work. And I like I said, we don't do too many postmortems. But even if I were to sit down, I don't to this day know why that didn't work.
Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, yeah. And I think it's I maybe it's because it was taking something external with an external identity and trying to implant it on quite a strong culture. Maybe that's what it was. But for whatever reason, it didn't work.
But coming back to what you said before about looking at the analytics and thinking, well, those are the analytics, but they exist within a wider world of politics, of what the business is doing, of what the world is doing, of what other announcement might have been made during that time. Isn't it also the case that at that point, it might, if you tried that again in a year, 2 years, it might fly. Absolutely. So you never really know, do you? It's sort of a combination of factors. It's very interesting. I'm going to ask you a bit of a cheeky question because I'm listening to everything you're saying and I'm thinking to myself, there are still going to be listeners thinking to themselves, wish I could do any of this. I wish I could have more fun with my content. I wish I could work at more pace. I wish we could worry less about it being polished. I wish we could think more about timing than anything else. So you've got a leader sat in front of you and they're like, no, it's got to be absolutely right. What are you saying to that leader? What are you saying to leaders? Put yourself in the position of someone who has to advise a leader, but what are you saying to those leaders who are saying, no, it has to be on point? What are they missing out on?
I think it is about that reframing perfection and having that discussion. And it's that is not an issue that I see being fixed in one conversation. That's a long journey to get someone closer and closer to that. Look, I know that I'm hugely lucky in the culture that I work in.
Exactly.
And the buy-in that I have and the kind of perfect storm that I joined that is just open and ready to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What I would say is maybe it's about small steps. Maybe it's about a small win now and proving that works and trying it again.
Yes.
I think that a more old school way of thinking about comms is developed kind of from before the social media world where everyone, and I mean everyone, is on social media in one way, shape or form.
Yes.
So that is the environment you're in. That is what you're competing with. It's not about faxing memos around. It's not about bulletin boards in the kitchens. It's not about that kind of thing anymore. And you're not, like, I know a lot of companies that like to do really polished videos and messages from the CEO. But you're not competing with CNN. You know what I mean? You're not. You're not competing with the BBC News.
No.
You're competing with whatever is on TikTok these days. You know. It's about. And the thing about that is that it's not about making a decision and saying, well, this is what we're doing now, because everything is always changing. It's about making a decision and saying, well, this is what we're doing for now, and looking at it again and looking at it again and looking at it again.
So smart.
Yeah.
So smart. I keep saying to clients, don't worry, it's a living document. In other words, don't stress about getting it perfect. We can change it next week or next month or next quarter. Yeah. But what's right for now? That's so smart. The other thing you said about we're not competing with CNN, we're not competing with the BBC. No, and nor should we try, because our secret sauce is we get to see the real person. We get to see when the mic's off. So why not lean into that a little bit more? Steve Crescenzo's been on the show, as one of our most popular guests, I think, talks about too much internal comms being written for the approver rather than the audience.
Absolutely.
Does that resonate as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I try, and it's so difficult not to do sometimes because it's a lot easier to just appease.
Yes.
But I try to always keep the frontline worker in mind. And to keep the audience in mind. And like I said, to reframe it even in my own mind, is the most important thing isn't what we want to say, it's how they will hear it. But yeah, it's a very good point, and I fall victim to it a lot too, because like I say, on a Friday afternoon, it's just easy to keep the boss happy sometimes.
Yes,
you know?
we've all been there. We've all been there. Yeah, absolutely. From everything you've said, it sounds like you've got a really good handle of what it's like working on the front line in different roles across your organisation. Do you encourage your team to get out and about? Do you get the chance to get out and about? Is that an important part of the role? Absolutely,
yeah. And that's about getting out and seeing so many different parts of the business, like from hangars to our bonds that pack the carts, to the crew rooms in the airports where our crew are actually looking at the apps, you know?
Yes.
To seeing what that environment is. But more so than even seeing that environment, it's about talking to those people. And seeing from their point of view what it is, what do they think of the platform? What do they like? What do they not like? And like, for me, that's my favorite part of the job is talking to these people who are working for the same company, and I hope feeling the same culture, but doing an entirely different thing.
Yes.
Working a night shift in a hangar in Prestwick, you know. Yes. It's all of this kind of stuff, and it's there's such value in hearing their feedback, hearing how they feel in the company, and hearing what they thought of your last piece of content. You know?
I 100% agree. I think it's one of the privileges of what we do is that we can walk into the boardroom, the canteen. You know, we work for Transport for London, underneath the trains with the maintenance workers on the night shift, all working for the same organisation. And I think that's a huge privilege and deeply fascinating as well.
Yeah.
You clearly get a lot done with a small team and a limited budget. If you had to advise a sort of a fellow IC professional about a secret tip to getting a lot done with not much resource and not much people, is there one key piece of advice you'd give?
Caffeine helps.
Doesn't it always? Absolutely.
It's a good question, and I think that what we had to do is the comms team aren't the only people responsible for comms in the company. Is getting that buy-in from people,
right?
And like we were so lucky. Like our in-flight department, our cabin crew are the biggest section of our company by far, and our in-flight team, just as soon as I came on board, were excited for what we were doing, really bought into it, and we work so closely with them. They make their own content, they make their own videos, they come to us with ideas all the time. We work together on a lot of projects, we work together on a lot of events. So it's not like the team stops at people with internal comms in their title.
Love it.
You know?
Yeah.
It's more than that. It's our chief people officer, Daryl, is so bought in. Our chief operations officer, Neil, is so bought in. I get people emailing me and coming to me with ideas all the time. And I kind of say to them, yeah, we can work on this, but we're working on this together. You know?
Yes.
And it's about that. It's about helping people and figuring out how to support each other in all of it.
Yeah. So you're expanding the scope because you're expanding the skill set across the organisation.
Absolutely. And as well as that, then I'm very lucky to have a team who are hungry for that madness to oh, do you want to go and do a video here? Yeah, absolutely. Let's go.
Nice.
Grab a camera, grab a bag, off I go. To turn things around quickly, to want to make great work and to feel the excitement in that, what's next, and that hunger to do what's next, and to not only what's next is in terms of project, but how can we change that tone? How can we improve this? How can we make that a little bit better? So yeah, it's I'm lucky to have that team there as well.
Yeah. Just one thought that I've got in my mind. There's a debate at the moment about the line between internal, external. We did a piece of research at AB about 4 years ago, and people saying more and more content was being deliberately created to sort of blur that line and go to both audiences. Are you at that stage of creating content that spans both audiences, or is it not quite there yet?
Not that it's not quite there. I mean, I think that we look at like we work with our comms team a lot, and we look at internal executions, I suppose I'd say, of what goes out. I still, because I worked in the marketing team, have quite strong relationships with a lot of people down there. And we look at, oh, you're doing that, that's cool. Could we twist that a little bit? Could we change that a little bit? Would that work if we did this? And kind of having fun with that a little bit. I mean, we would never be afraid of merging the two, but it's about on a piece by piece basis.
Yes.
What is the right thing to do? So yeah.
Coming back to the content, as it were, and what's right for the content and
Absolutely.
what's right for the audience.
Yeah. Like a project that we were working on there recently is through the summer. European air traffic control has been quite bad, and we went out with huge customer focused campaigns around that. But we went out with huge internal campaigns around that as well. But the effect that air traffic control will have on a customer is very different to the effect that it'll have on someone working in the industry. So even though it was the same issue that we were communicating, we had to twist it a little bit to fit into each of those. But we are taking the same issues on board and with the same challenges and just looking at the comms executions on either side, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. This episode of the Internal Comms podcast is brought to you by the Internal Communication Masterclass. I've condensed more than 30 years of experience and expertise into this unique, on-demand learning journey. Gain the capability, the confidence, and the credibility to turbocharge your career. There are 8 work streams in this masterclass, which you can buy individually or as one learning journey. Each work stream comes with a downloadable course book with some compelling homework tasks and more useful resources. Visit icmasterclass.com. Now, this is an entirely on-demand program, so you can learn at your own pace, anytime, anywhere. Plus, there's no expiry date, so you can revisit the content whenever you wish. And as a listener to this show, you get a 30% discount off each workstream or the entire masterclass. Just pop the code podcast in at the checkout. Stand out from the crowd, gain that promotion, and feel re-energized and inspired. icmasterclass.com. In the last few minutes we have left, do we head over to those quick fire questions?
Yeah, sounds good.
These are quick because they're supposed to be quick for me to ask,
okay.
Not necessarily for you to answer.
Okay.
What book should all comms professionals read, do you think? Or is there a film? Maybe that's a better question. Is there a film all comms people should watch?
I watch a huge number of films. I read a huge amount. But I think that some of the inspiration I get comes from unorthodox places.
Right.
And I think that because our strategy is very video focused, I take things from films from a production point of view, but also from messaging there and in like, it was funny actually a while ago. We do every week, we do a weekly roundup.
Yes.
That kind of rounds up the big stats from around the business that week, the highlights, whatever it is. And Eddie, our CEO, came in on a Monday and he said, I watched the David Bowie documentary there on the weekend. It'd be great if we could implement that style. And we didn't quite know what he meant, but we watched the documentary and we went, yeah, we have it. And we brought in some of the editing choices, some of the way they use text on screen. And it was really, really effective. And like that, no matter what piece of media, whether it's writing or film or even music, it's all about communicating a message.
Yes.
So, I mean, looking at those little ways that they do it in an interesting way and seeing if we can implement them is always something we do.
Fantastic. Great answer. Thank you.
Was a better answer than I
Love it. What is the one trait or characteristic that has most led to your career success, do you think?
This is a difficult question to answer without kind of feeling egotistical or something.
Modest, yes.
Yeah. I suppose for me, it's one thing that I always try and hold on to is madness, and looking at things and someone saying, "Oh, we can't do that." I always question, well, why not? You know, and saying, thinking outside the box and thinking of a wild way of doing something and bringing a bit of madness into it, and taking what could be something quite straightforward and turning it on its head, still achieving the same goal, but with a bit of flair, you know?
Yeah.
And
just that sort of innovation and that drive to be a bit different and thinking of things from the other angle.
Absolutely, yeah,
a new
and
angle.
it's if you've seen something done in a certain way before, maybe think of doing it a different way, you know what I mean? Think of bringing a new twist on it, something fun, something out there, something that'll turn heads.
So funny. It reminded me of a brief once I got from a client over a phone. Katie, we want it. You know those corporate responsibility reports that look like, and he went on to explain, and I was just about to leap in to say, absolutely know what you want. Absolutely. He said, yeah. What I want is something that's nothing like those. Got ya.
Yeah. Like it's. I don't know why this story pops into my head, but I was working years ago with the social media team on a video, in Malta, highlighting it as a destination, and we were there with Connor, who was a videographer and social media executive, and we were walking alpacas or llamas, I can't remember which at this stage, and there was a guide there with us. And I was holding the camera, and the guide said to Connor, he said, "Don't look the llama in the eye. The llama will spit at you if you look him in the eye." And he went, "Yep, no problem." And then he looked at the llama directly in the eye, and the llama spit in his face. And I said, "Connor, why did you do that? He was after telling you that llama was going to spit in your face." And he looked me dead in the eye and he goes, "We recording?" So, I don't know why that story popped into my head, but it did.
Were you recording?
Yes, I was. Yes, and it's in the final video. It was amazing.
Anything for the final cut. It's got to be worth it. What's one piece of bad advice or outdated thinking that you think has consistently dogged and continues to consistently dog our profession?
Again, and it's probably tied into my last answer, it's that I think some people have the idea that boring is better. And that if it's not boring and if it's not over serious, then nobody will see it seriously, and that silly and serious are diametrically opposed.
Yeah,
where I don't think they are. I think that you can say something in a maybe silly is too strong a word for it, but in a real unpolished way, and it can have way more impact than if it's said in a stilted boardroom-esque way.
Yeah, I think that's so true and so powerful. It's something we really forget. It's interesting, isn't it, that how many organisations, even when you just look at their websites, let alone other things, it looks like they want to fit in rather than stand out. Mm-hmm. And why would you not want to stand out? It's so, it's crazy. Yeah. How would you complete this sentence? World-class internal communication is
always changing.
Yeah,
always changing, and it's that's what it is for us. And I'm like I say, I said earlier, I'm reluctant to say a kind of a soundbite that people will take on board, because what we do won't work for everyone, and it's about looking at where they fit in this media environment and figuring out for their own company what that looks like for them. But what I would say is to always look at that environment and look externally and take that as inspiration and take flavors of what other people are doing, but don't try and be anyone else.
Yes.
Like you said earlier, the privilege that we have is being able to show behind that curtain and to be able to be ourselves, whatever that is, for whatever company it is, you know.
Every organisation has its unique culture. I remember working for two very large pharmaceutical organisations in the same city in Switzerland, going from one to the other. The products, I'm sure, were very similar, but my goodness me, when you walked through the doors, from the moment you knew you were one in one and not the other. So you're right, every organisation has that unique culture. It's about bringing that to life, really. Finally, James, on the Internal Comms podcast, we give you a billboard and we do mock these up. So you will see this. You can have it in Times Square or, I don't know, wherever you'd like it to be. You can put a message on that billboard for millions to see. What message would you like on your billboard?
I would like it to say have fun, to tell people to have fun. And then in, I was going to say smaller writing, but in equal size writing, I would say fly Ryanair. So, because always working, always have to get the sale in there.
I love it. James, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
So that's a wrap for this episode of the Internal Comms podcast. I have a small favour to ask you if you did enjoy this show. If you could like or review or even share it with a fellow IC professional, that would be fantastic. It just helps the wider Internal Comms community find our show. If you want the show notes, you will find them on AB's website. That's abcom.co.uk. You will also find there our entire back catalogue of more than 100 episodes. I promise you that there's one for every icy challenge you might be facing. So until we meet again, lovely listeners, stay safe and well. And remember, it's what's inside that counts.